I have to atone for my sins of being from a family of 6 generations of lawyers.
What am I going to do? I'm not going to jump off the 6th floor and say I have privilege and nothing I can do about it. Privilege for me is a disadvantage for someone else. The fact that you go to an English medium school and are comfortable with the language, which is the language of the court, that's privilege.
Clients also trust lawyers who come from families of lawyers because they think हाँ इसको सब कुछ पता होगा, ये अपना family of law है. What the performance versus reality aspect is in the profession.
I believe in freedom. The idea that every individual should have the ability to decide on their own life, unfettered by the power of the state. Don't shut the constitution at the gates of the temple alone, or the mosque, or the gurdwara. But reform cannot wait. We waited long enough. It's been 80 years. How much more?
The Hindu community has been taken for granted. कि इनका तो वोट आना ही है. So let's just do this right now. Senior Advocate Saurabh Kirpal on off record. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. It is an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
And thank you for calling me. It's actually, the pleasure's mine.
The law student in me is very happy, very jumpy to be with you today. At the same time, the professional in me is very honored actually to be sitting with you. And I want to start my conversation from the recollection I have of you from my college days, which was not very long ago, say 2008, 2013, tak I did my law. So at the time, people used to say, oh, have you heard of Saurabh Kirpal? And whoever didn't know was like, you don't know. You don't know his name. You don't know who he is. So from that limited legal ecosystem that was aware of your name to 2017, 2018 onwards, being a public, more of a public personality, all across the headlines also. That change happened for you, I think, at some point. Would you like to reflect on that a little bit first?
Well, first, I'd like to say that I must do a podcast with you more often. You're really good for my ego. It's really, thank you so very much. I hope my husband sees this and my family members see this and start believing everything you said. But yes, look, if I do reflect and think back about my legal career and, it started, I was a lawyer in 1996. And then when my father became a senior judge, I left India and I went to Geneva. I worked with the UN. In those times, it was expected that you would not necessarily be in the same court as your father or you would not practice there. So I left. So I restarted my legal career age 2002. And I think I deliberately withheld a lot of who I was. I tried to be under the radar, quiet, because I believed in the legal profession in the long term. It's like a marathon race. So you had to go about it slowly, steadily, quietly. There were so many people looking at me already in any case, not because of who I was, but because of who my father was. I didn't want to add to that by attracting attention to myself. So I was quite quiet and just did my work. I loved my work. I loved law. It really filled me with passion. And that sort of carried on. I just slowly grew, very slowly grew. I think I stayed a junior to Mukul Rohatgi, who was my senior, far longer than most people do nowadays. Now people leave at 2 or 3 years. I worked with him till 2006-07 when I was, that means almost 10 years into the profession. So as a junior. So it was very slow for me. And then, of course, the invitation to join the bench happened. And even while I may not have attracted or wanted controversy, it seemed to come and attach itself like a barnacle to me. And it became more and more necessary for me to take a more public stance. But my first love in all of this was and continues to be just law and devotion to all that it has accomplished, all that it can accomplish, the potential of law, the variety of law. It still gives me goosebumps sometimes when I think of law. So in terms of the journey, I think I've become less reticent and shy over time. I've opened up a lot more. Even though my public persona is as a fairly voluble, open person, I don't think I'm innately that. I think I am more reserved, I am more quiet, but sometimes circumstances require you to act out of your comfort zone. And I think that's what it is for me.
So when you say that it was slower, was that deliberate? Because I don't know, I'm thinking out loud. It came from a position of privilege also to some extent where you could be slower than the others, or you could take your time into it.
Look, the fact that I had privilege is undoubted about it, right? But privilege often makes people rush. Because you can get something because of privilege, you do get it. That's the natural progression of people with privilege. I recognize that. And then I stopped myself from trying to what I felt would be abuse of privilege. So I don't think it was privilege that allowed me to go slower, and that's why I did. I think it was privilege that drilled in me an idea that if I don't slow down, I will never be seen as someone who has accomplished anything on his own merit. It would always be seen as I am who I am because of the privilege that I had. So I deliberately slowed down because of that. I think that was really one of the reasons. And I think that was the overwhelming reason in my head at that point of time. I'd seen far too many children of other judges go up like shooting stars and die as quickly. I didn't want that to happen to me. So I said, let's slow down, learn. I know it's very common for people to say, I'm a student of law, and I will always say student of law. But there's a deep truth to it. I spent a lot of time reading, learning, before I felt adequate really to go out and argue. I used to stutter and stammer in the early years because I was nervous, because I felt I didn't know enough. So I think maybe different people are different. For me, it just took that much more time to feel secure in my ability and my knowledge to then go out and do something.
I also ask because you've been very direct about the fact that you are coming from a privileged background. You've seen law also from very close quarters. In fact, you've gone so far as to say almost apologetically that I have to atone for my sins of being from a family of 6 generations of lawyers.
Yes.
So why are you so apologetic about it?
Because I think if you fail to recognize your privilege, you are perpetuating it. And privilege for me is a disadvantage for someone else. So by perpetuating my privilege, I'm perpetuating their disadvantage. And that is something that you have to be apologetic for. If you perpetuate someone else's disadvantage, it's not something to be proud of. It's something to try to remedy and rectify. Otherwise, I will just pass on the system as I found it. And that's deeply unfair. And as I said, I love law earlier. One of the reasons I love law is its social ability to bring about positive, meaningful change. But if in my own life, I adopt the same power structures and use that privilege to go ahead, I'd be dishonest. And that's something I would not want. Look, the fact that I'm privileged is obvious. I mean, my father's name is there as the Chief Justice, the house I live in, the people I meet, my friends, all of those are incidents of privilege. But I can't disown my family. Right? What am I going to do? I'm not going to jump off the 6th floor and say I have privilege and nothing I can do about it. There are things you can do if you have privilege. One of them is to actively recognize it. I think that's the first step before you do something about it. So if I don't even talk about it, don't apologize. I don't quite apologize, but recognize and try to remedy the benefit it gives me to the extent I can. I think that's disingenuous of me. So I think it's important to acknowledge. Far too few people do it.
Yeah, because a lot of people also write on their LinkedIn profiles, oh, second generation lawyer. And I think in a way, it is because clients also trust lawyers who come from families of lawyers because they think, हाँ इसको सब कुछ पता होगा, ये अपना family of law है. I think that mindset is still there. Maybe that's why people are...
I think that's probably true. I think there's also, of course, an element of people's own self-worth. They think that they will be better at law because their father was also a lawyer. I say father because there are hardly any mothers who are lawyers. Yes, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. So they honestly start believing, and if they have a lack of confidence, they'll project it that way, try to remedy a feeling they see in themselves by saying, yes, I'm a second generation lawyer. I know so much more than you. Uh, so maybe that's one of the reasons. I mean, I can't enter the head of someone else as to why they would put in their LinkedIn profile something that is frankly absolutely irrelevant.
Yes.
You could be second generation, first generation, or 100th generation. I mean, you have to stand on your own feet and your own competence. But I really can't understand the mindset of someone who would say that. I'm just guessing. We're sitting in armchairs, so let's do some armchair psychology. So that's what I think it would be.
Well, that's not what I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to understand what the performance versus reality aspect is in the profession. You've pointed it out yourself in your Twitter profile, X profile now, long back, not very recently. You said that there are people who have godfathers and they are not open about it,
Right.
and everybody knows that they have godfathers, but then they say, oh, I achieved this without a godfather, and that is very common in the Bollywood industry also. Sometimes you get to know, oh, this guy was talking about struggles, but then turns out somebody in his family was very well connected, and that's how he got a break.
Yes.
So do you think that happens in the law also very much?
I think so. It's become performative. A lot of your image that you're trying to create of someone who's struggling, who is really had it tough, when in fact you come from a very privileged background. As a lawyer, if I had to start my career, would you be the son of a Chief Justice of India? Would you be Anant Ambani? I mean, Ambani did not have any legal lineage, but surely if he were to become a lawyer, would be immensely successful.
Yes.
So just because you don't have a legal background doesn't mean you're not imbued with privilege. The fact that you go to an English medium school and are comfortable with the language, which is the language of the court, that's privilege. The fact that you go to a set of chambers where you meet other people who are powerful, that's privilege. You may not have power directly through your father, but if you have access to people who have that power, then that is also privilege. And I think that's why we should expand the concept of what it means to be privileged. So this is what I said, it's performative. You see it's like the person in LinkedIn, as you pointed out earlier, who said a second generation lawyer, wears that as a badge of pride.
Honor.
Badge of pride. Same thing, I'm a first generation lawyer. Look what I've done by myself. That must mean how good I am. With the odds stacked against me, I've still come up. Without recognizing that you've come up because you had all other kinds of connections. I think that is also disingenuous. Privilege is it's a subliminal thing. It operates at multiple levels in our society as a whole, through caste, religion, economic well-being, schooling, your peer group. I think it's important to recognize that there are multiple forms of privilege. And to say that, let me get hold of one thing that I don't have, then make that into something I'm going to run with, and then claim that all my success, to whichever extent it may be, was because, in spite of that absence, I'm not buying that. I don't think anyone should also.
And would you like to tell us what your ideology is, or what you think in terms of politics, or your ideological stance?
Oh, look,
generally.
Yes, I'm very clearly, and I'm not apologetic. I would say I would be a true liberal. Liberal has become a cuss word in certain drawing rooms. It's also become some other kind of fetish in another. And I find some liberals would be the first to oppress free speech if it didn't suit what they wanted to. Equally, I think in certain sectors, calling someone a liberal is an accusation. I believe in freedom. The idea that every individual should have the ability to decide on their own life, unfettered by the power of the state, the ability to lead a full life, not restricted by overly oppressive societal and familial traditions, the right to take control of your own life. And with a concomitant obligation on the state to protect that life worldview, uh, not to come itself after someone, also to stop others from coming after someone, to create a free society, an open society where people can disagree, but freely and without fear. Uh, I think that's what I am. The idea of having these rights that the Constitution promised us as being meaningful and something that are carried out in action rather than just in speeches by powers that be in seminars outside the courtroom. To see that acting in life, I think that is my ideology. Uh, before we started recording this interview, we were talking about left and right. What is left anymore? What is right anymore? That used to be a economic term,
Yeah.
but we find a lot of people on the right adopting economic policies which would be traditionally very left wing, and people on the left kowtowing with the biggest corporate houses. So that blurring of the economic ideology on the left and the right is, I think, a matter for another debate. In terms of pure ideological beliefs, I think being a liberal is still something very clear. It casts an onerous burden on you. So that even if someone is abusing you, I had better learn to shut up and take that, because not to do that would be illiberal and then hence dishonest.
And they also say that with age, everybody becomes a conservative. You're a liberal in college, you're a leftist in college, and then if you don't
Yeah.
become a liberal, conservative as you grow older, then there's something wrong with you. That's what is usually said. It's a cliche. It happened with you.
Well, it's not correct to say that. I think the older you get, you have WhatsApp uncles as well who are. Uh, so let's leave that aside. Maybe I'm one also, on every form. Look, my views have changed, of course, as does anyone's. As you grow older, maybe some people have more at stake. They have families, and
Yes.
so they prefer the status quo because it gives them stability and predictability, which is what you need maybe growing up. Some people become more radical as they grow older. Everyone's path is different, and I think that shows evolution, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing worse than taking an idea and sticking with it no matter what the evidence is to the contrary. I think that stubbornness can also be a symptom of foolishness. So to change your ideas depending on what your situation is, what you've seen in life, that is but normal, and that is a sign of a maturing individual. Personally speaking, I think, yes, I think I fit very much that archetype of being extremely left-wing, liberal in school and college because you saw injustices and you were outraged by it. I wouldn't say I'm not outraged by injustices today or the injustices have lessened. I think maybe I've become cynical or more circumspect in how I think those injustices can and ought to be remedied. I think the idea of using the legal process, participating in the political process, trying to bring about change in a more measured way in society through the reach of media, for instance, those things just, the impatient me is gone now. Even though as I'm getting older, you have to have less patience because you're getting older and you have less time left on this planet. But I think I am becoming more patient because I've seen that change happens. It takes time. And if I just burn myself out in eager anticipation of something happening tomorrow, which it's not going to, I will not be able to do that marathon that I talked of right at the beginning. It needs to be, I need to have that stamina to survive and to push. And that in itself is kind of a status quoism, isn't it?
That brings me to an important question on UCC now, the Uniform Civil Code. Why? Because recently the Chief Justice also commented on it. He said that, the PILs that were coming in to the courts and everything about inheritance rights,
Right.
about Muslim women's rights. So the only way to sort this out is to have a Uniform Civil Code in place.
Right.
And that is his opinion. What do you think about that? Do you think there should be a Uniform Civil Code or not?
Well, yes. I think a Uniform Civil Code is nothing inherently anti-secular.
Okay.
You have a a single personal law code in all secular countries across the Western democracies. There's a establishment clause in the US Constitution which doesn't permit the state to have a religion, and yet they have a single personal code which applies to you. And it's there in our Constitution as a directive principle of state policy that the state will endeavor to move towards a uniform civil code. It's something that was kind of left behind as a constitutional compromise in 1950. But I think it's important to have a civil code because a non-uniform civil code is uniformly discriminatory towards women. And that is why I have the greatest desire to see a uniform civil code. Because these are just entrenched discriminations that hide behind the veneer of religious freedom. There is no necessary, after all, I can't start a religion which says I'm not going to stop at a traffic light. When religion comes in contact with certain societal requirements, you have to give way. So I think uniform civil code is necessary. The question is how and when to bring it about, and in what circumstances. If the circumstances weren't ripe enough in 1950 because of the partition and the massive Hindu-Muslim riots that had happened and the distrust, the fact that all Muslim League members of the Constituent Assembly had walked out and gone to Pakistan, and all the Muslim members in the Constituent Assembly had to be co-opted by the Congress Party to create some space. That was a time of great distrust. Have we improved in those 80 years, and have we come to a place where a uniform civil code can be brought about without engendering a feeling of mistrust and distrust within the minority communities? And I say that not because of any other reason other than if the minority community feels something is being thrust upon them, they would be less willing to enforce and follow that. A uniform civil code is not something that happens through operation of law in courts. It has to be practiced in people's daily lives. You may abolish triple talaq, but I don't believe that it's still not happening. You've abolished dowry, I don't believe it's not happening. So till people are emotionally convinced about the correctness of the law that has come, they're not going to follow it.
But Mr. Kirpal, by that logic, when we got the Hindu code also, a lot of people were rioting at that time
Yes.
Against the codes. And for example, a lot of families, even now, they don't want to give their property rights to the women in the family.
Right.
But over time, it evolved to have them included
Yes.
equally.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, when I place my head around it, it is difficult to balance out whether it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do at the time, considering that there were Hindu rights also which were affected. And at the same time, there was reform, or it was being sold as reform. When is the right time then? When all of this keeps happening?
I don't believe it's not the right time. I'm not saying that don't do it. Consensus building is difficult but necessary. You can't have a discussion about reform without including people whose lives you wish to reform. And if they don't come on board, then so be it. Consensus doesn't mean a veto. Discussion doesn't mean a veto. I think there needs to be a broad-based discussion started by people in Parliament, of course, because that has to come through that, where you reach out to communities. Something that has not happened, I think, in a long, long time across many communities for decades. The Hindu code, just coming to that, before I come to what it should be, in 1955, when the three code came, that was an attempt for over 7 or 8 years. It had failed multiple times.
Okay.
And that was opposed by no less than the President of India at that point of time, Rajendra Babu, who refused to sign till he was told he had no option but to. And that was a reform within the majority community. And I think we can, in terms of reform, it's easier to do to the majority community because they have less other fears. But a minority community has multiple other fears, like it or not, real or imagined. The fact is they do feel vulnerable because they're a minority. So you do need that extra bit of just a discussion and a comfort that you need to give to them because they're citizens of India. You need to carry them along. If you are nervous for whatever reason, you need to put that calming hand on them and say, well, don't worry, we have your interests at stake. And that's why I'm saying maybe you need a greater discussion with the members of the community. So far, you've been talking to some rogue actors, like the Indian Muslim Personal Law Board. I think is a rogue actor. Necessarily, that's not also representative of maybe the community.
Okay.
Don't reach out to the most conservative elements and just speak to them and say, well, we tried and we failed. Build bridges to women's groups. After all, it was a woman, Shaira Bano, who brought the case to the Supreme Court, which led to the abolition of the triple talaq.
Yes.
There are enough reform-minded people within the communities. Speak to them. Build an atmosphere of trust. Don't just get a report by a retired judge of the Supreme Court and say, here it is, and my way or the highway. Have a public discussion, genuine engagement with people. And then, if need be, bring the reform. You're right, it's never the right time,
Yeah.
but there's always a right way to do things.
I feel that when it was done back in the day, maybe it is my logical or political thought process, but I feel like it was done in a way so as to consider the Hindu community as being taken for granted. कि इनका तो वोट आना ही है. So let's just do this right now. Let's not give the reforms to the minority community because we have to appease them. So I think it came from that perspective at the time. Not that it's right or wrong. I'm glad that women have more rights today. But just food for thought is what I'm reflecting on.
I think what all communities, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, have to accept is that reform is good in itself. And the fact that reform is happening within us and it's not happening in another religion is not an unfair advantage given to the other religion. That's a disadvantage. The fact that Hindu laws being reformed is an advantage for Hindus because we're becoming a fairer and more just society. The fact that a man cannot marry as many women as he wants and have multiple wives, and a Muslim man can have 4 wives, is not an unfair advantage on Muslims at all.
Ask the men.
Yeah, it is So why see the fact that reform is happening within your community and not in another as an advantage to them? I would see differently. We are giving reform a positive spin, aren't we? We all see reform is necessary. So when reform is happening, I would say 1950, grave injustice was done to Muslims by reforming the Hindu law, and grave injustice was done to Muslim women, was it not? That triple talaq still stood, talaq, and all the Muslim rights, inheritance, the fact that you don't get alimony, these disadvantages were perpetuated in 1955 when the Hindu community was in fact reformed. So I don't think it was a case of political vote bank politics because Hindus will vote for us in any case and Muslims will not, we'll get them this way. This was a potential way of alienating a lot of conservative Hindus at that time. There was opposition, as you said.
Yes.
Muslims were not bothered. They would carry on voting for the Congress party at that time in any case because that was the only party they really knew. But it took political courage to invite a potential backlash in the 50s. And it really was Dr. Ambedkar again. I know it's become fashionable to mention Dr. Ambedkar all the time now. But the fact is, at least in this, as in the Constitution, he's the one who really pushed the reform within the Hindu society because he had suffered. And reform means lifting up those who are the most vulnerable within the community. Because that is, as I said, the individual improves, the community improves. You have a constitutional right, you have unity and integrity of India. You have a Hindu woman or a Muslim woman who has more rights and powers, the community has more rights and powers. So the way to improve a community is through the individual and through empowering. So I wouldn't quite put it in those terms. I would say that Muslims got left behind in 1955. And I hope we reach up to our constitutional promise and enact but in the way I was talking about a uniform civil code. Till then, at least to a piece by piece reform. That's another thing I've never understood is okay, maybe it would be politically highly sensitive or explosive to have a uniform civil code. Well, why not bring out individual reforms? Why not the way the triple talaq was banned by Parliament after the judgment of the Supreme Court? Why wasn't it done before? You had the BJP government, which was against this practice. They argued for it. The Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi argued, saying the practice was pernicious and it should be banned. Why wait for the courts to bring it? Why did that reform not happen in Parliament? So bring about those piecemeal changes. Even in Hindu law, while yes, there was a massive reform in 1955, yet it was only in 2005 that the Succession Act was amended to make women into co-parishioners. So that was also piecemeal reform. We still have Section 17 of the Hindu Succession Act, which discriminates against women in matters of inheritance or intestate or their heirs. So there are still instances of discrimination in Hindu law. Start reforming on a step-by-step basis if you don't find it politically feasible to do something whole hog. But reform cannot wait. We waited long enough. It's been 80 years. How much more?
We've been having the Sabarimala hearing also. It's all connected, right? The individual rights versus what the tradition is in that temple. You have any thoughts or views on that, opinions on that right now?
Well, look, matters of faith and rationality do come into conflict, inevitably, because faith by definition is almost non-rational. I wouldn't say irrational, but I would say it's non-rational. It's outside the realm of rationality. It comes from belief. So how do you measure it up? What is faith? And I know the essential religious practices test is maybe on its way out, the way the hearing is going. But isn't it necessary to say that faith is sacrosanct, but at its margins, it must give way to certain beliefs of the Constitution, core values of the Constitution. So, if there is a denomination that believes that sati is good, surely we won't stand for that. Or some other equally female circumcision is good. You don't stand for that. So if there is something which is so integral to a religion that its very basis would be wiped off if the constitutional floods would be allowed in, then maybe respect that, because faith, as I said, is a non-rational thing. But you can't also leave a person defenseless. You don't shut the constitution at the gates of the temple alone, or the mosque, or the gurdwara. The constitutional promise can't be so weak as not to be that umbrella when you need it. So in that faith versus constitution dialogue, I think this essential religious practice test, while it may have dubious constitutional basis, is a good way of measuring things. Allowing women into Sabarimala is an article of faith, or not allowing them, is an article of faith for the Ayyappa devotees of that particular religious, it's so far held not to be a denomination. Let's see what the court says. Religious group. But you must remember, when you exclude women from a Sabarimala, it is also sending out a signal to people that women are less able, and menstruation somehow is a bad thing. And while that will make no difference to most women, I know, and they'll say, well, we don't want to go there in any case, there is still a practice in our country where women who are menstruating are not allowed to go into the kitchen. They're made to sleep in outhouses. We can't forget the reality of India we live in. So where does a court draw that line in saying, all right, we need societal reform, which is to take the taboo away from something as natural as menstruation, and interfering with the faith of people? I think you can very well go to the Ayyappa temple, to Sabarimala, pray and have a woman age 30 walk with you, and you'll be no less an Ayyappa devotee. The idea that the God is an Ashtik Brahmacharya.
To compare it with untouchability is something that just I can't place my head around that. If you want to quickly reflect on that, if you think, what do you think about it?
So, in terms of Article 17 and the Sabarimala issue, I think the invocation of untouchability was a judicial sleight of hand by Justice Chandrachud uh, in trying to give further reasons to defend or hold the judgment. It's kind of a case of a confirmation bias. The idea that untouchability is something that affects women when they're menstruating of a certain age. The consequences, yes, are the same, right? Of
Yes.
what an untouchability a person who's Dalit in that time goes and what a woman may feel. But I think the history, the causes, the effect, the structural inequalities that exist in uh, untouchability is not the same as that for women. And as I said, while you can see parallels, I think it demeans the unique kind of, I shouldn't say demean, it diminishes the unique kind of lack of access to resources that Dalits have had and the unique forms of discrimination they faced by saying every woman also went through the same. 50% of women in India are not untouchables. Untouchability is something that affects the core of your being. It devalues your sense of self. It's not necessarily something that I would necessarily associate with a menstruating woman. I think that was maybe an argument that could have been made, taken a bit too far. But the judgment rests on many other bases as well. And I could see, as I said, yeah, in that time, you're not supposed to be touched. You are meant to sleep in the room outside. You are treated as an untouchable for those time. But untouchability is not just about literally not being touched. It's about a system of oppression that has changed your mental DNA in a way that perpetuates a feeling of inferiority, which I don't think necessarily affects uh,
All women.
all women. It doesn't. It doesn't. And it's one of the few rights, Article 17, which is self-acting in our constitution, which is horizontal. The constitution prohibits the untouchability, practice of untouchability, and requires the state to make a law to bring about the abolition.
Yes.
Article 14 and 15, which are the rights to equality for women, are not acting by themselves. You require state intervention on occasion, and this is a right only against the state, not against another individual. These are substantively different rights that were given to different communities because the problems were different. The discrimination a woman faces in the workplace, in life in general, is different from the kind of systemic discrimination a person who's Dalit feels, or maybe a person who is of a sexual minority feels, or a religious minority. To lump everyone into one group as a minority versus a majority, I think misses out the nuances and the intersectionalities and differences and the rainbows of differences within the community as well. So I can understand the feeling behind it, the emotion behind it. I want to reform.
Yeah.
Let's use this tool of Article 17. But when you start using constitutionally dubious techniques to justify a particular decision, you render it amenable to a very quick, rapid challenge, as I think is going to happen in the 9-judge bench. So if you want something to be sustainable in the long term, the old system of common law, building case by case, bit by bit, sometimes that may be necessary also. Again, I feel almost hypocritical because after all, we did file that marriage equality petition, which was anything but incremental. But in a sense, I would say that was incremental because it built up on a whole host of other cases that had come. But that's another dialogue for another time. Maybe when we had the other discussion to massage my ego when you introduce me again, maybe for that.
Absolutely. But I want to also go for your journey quickly now a little bit. You have said that you wanted to be a physicist. and then you became a lawyer. Why that change happened? Why did it happen at all?
Maybe I'm just an optimist who just likes whatever they're doing. I love physics, so I fell in love with physics. So then I did it in university, and I loved what I did at that point of time. So I really said I want to be a physicist. Uh, I really enjoyed it. I loved the logic of it. I loved the predictability of it. The fact you could see the world was being revealed to you. You were understanding things that you knew other people wouldn't understand, and you could finally understand yourself. Uh, it was like Moses parting the sea for me in my mind, really. So that's why I love physics. But then, unfortunately, the practical reality of having to earn a living and living in India dawned upon me. I mean, you can't be, at least in the, you went to law school in 2000s. Let's not date exactly where I am. Let's say it was in the late 80s and early 90s when I read my physics. India was different. There was no, this is before liberalization. There was no hope for me to do physics in India and earn a decent living. I would have had to teach somewhere, get a lecturer salary. It's not, or I would have had to leave India and teach abroad, something I really did not want to do.
But back in the day, even lawyers didn't make so much money.
I assure you, they made more than college lecturers.
Yeah?
Of course. The taxation was 102% at one point of time in the 70s, and lawyers didn't make that much money. But lawyers, I knew plenty of lawyers who made a lot of money. Since I came from privilege, a lot of these lawyers were people my father knew and who I knew. They had
Decent amount of
yes, a good lifestyle, earning a fair bit of money. So I think that was something that was kind of not on for me to do physics. So I did the next best thing. The other thing I'd seen, also people say, why did you choose law? Was it because of my family? Hey, in the 80s, you became a doctor, engineer, a lawyer. Business was not an option for someone like me because I didn't come from a family of businessmen. I had no capital. My father had been a judge for 10, 15 years, and the salary of a judge was nothing at that point of time. You didn't even get a government car in those days, something that you're getting now. You had your own car, whatever.
New cars, like a new band of cars now.
Yeah. So good on them. I mean, they deserve it.
That's
Maybe they're
great.
giving up a lucrative career.
Yes.
So I couldn't start a business. I couldn't do physics. So almost by a process of elimination is how I came up to law. Plus, it's something I'd seen around me. It just felt natural. We're talking, I mean, it's odd to bring the concept of untouchability here, the reverse untouchability. When you start believing things because you're in a particular situation, when you start believing you're less than worthy because you're born in a Dalit family, equally, when I saw law around me, I thought this is something I can do, maybe. Maybe I'm not, maybe I'll be fine at it. And I was not a very adventurous child, I don't think. Status quo came naturally to me. For all my liberalism and left-wing views in college, that was also status quo in that time. Everyone was that. I was thinking like all of them. All of India was socialist in the 80s. Right? There was a rare person who was a capitalist in that time. So I did law.
Would you like to give some advice to youngsters who are trying to make it as big as you in the profession, even if they don't have that kind of a backing? Do you think there's some non-negotiables that everybody should follow regardless of where they come from?
I'll just sound like that WhatsApp uncle I'd talked about earlier, and I sound like a broken old record, is patience and hard work. People keep on saying this because it's true. Hard work in the sense of investing in your knowledge of the law. I find too many young people now using legal resources and not knowing the law already. It's something they go out to discover every time they come up with a case. But you cannot understand one field of the law without having a knowledge of many others. Law is like a spider's web. One part will have a ramification on another. Some of the most important issues in administrative law have come from income tax law. Criminal law affects constitutional law. So to say I'm a lawyer who does criminal law but has no knowledge of constitutional law you're doing your client a great disservice. And so it is a multifaceted area, and you therefore must read law. That's the hard work I'm talking of. 10, 12, 14 hours that lawyers put into their work. You may be good at your work, bad at your work. Some are fast, some are slow. I'm not talking about that. In your spare time, read as much law as you can. If you hate reading judgments, read commentaries. Don't read just extracts of judgments. Read the whole thing because you learn, and especially read the older judgments. That's so much better written. The judgments today, I'm sorry to say, are just prolix and often contradictory, and will not nearly teach you as much as the judgment of the 50s and the 60s. Read them. That's one, I would say. Old judgments. And patience is something that I can understand young people are impatient. And why should they not be? I mean, they've come from all kinds of backgrounds, they've studied, they need the money sometimes. But structurally, the system is not like that. It's not geared in a way that you will come in and start earning lots of money in an ethical way. There may be other ways to earn money quickly. I would not recommend that to anybody because you could be in trouble. But it is framed in that way. Now, is this something I think is correct? No. There should be systems, really, which allow someone to start earning money more quickly. Seniors should pay their juniors more. There should be more transparent employment opportunities in sets of seniors' chambers. But that's not how it is. And if that is it, you can't fight that structure at the stage when you enter the legal profession. You have to work with it. I mean, it's not something that is great, but it's something that lawyers need to know, young lawyers need to know. So have that patience. And that patience should have that glimmer of hope, is that I have met so many people from all kinds of backgrounds who have made it so big in the legal profession because they were good at their work. They were rewarded. The system, मैंने कहते भगवान के घर में देर है अंधेर नहीं. I think the legal system is somewhat like that. It's unfair that it's slow. I can see it.
And by the time a lot of people reach that point, they are so used to the system that they don't want to change it.
True, I think that's it. Because the status quo, they're now started benefiting from it.
Yes.
Their children now coming into the profession and they think, okay, well, I didn't have the advantage. Let me perpetuate it for them.
But that's so natural also. I don't know. I mean, I don't see that changing anytime soon, for sure.
I can. You see a lot of law firms now. I'm talking exclusively of litigation. People are joining law firms, biggest law schools, NLS, here, there. They have employment opportunities where they get good pay packages.
Yeah.
So that's changed. These law firms will go to those schools to hire. I think it's time for change also in litigation, but it requires thought and effort. Not only through passing judicial orders to allow women in the bar council election. I mean, that's low-hanging fruit, that's jazzy, snazzy, but doesn't bring about the kind of meaningful change you need to bring about, the systemic changes that are needed. I hope it happens.
Any quick takes on AI? Do you like using it? A lot of judges don't like it. They've openly said that, it's something that should not work for judgments. Maybe it's a lot to do with hallucinating judgments also that come off it.
Yeah.
But I also feel there is some sort of insecurity कि हम replace हो जाएंगे.
Replace तो होंगे. Maybe not judges, and maybe in time even judges. And is that really always a bad thing? AI is something that is like computers, like technology. It's here. There's no point being scared about it. It's a tool that can make things so much better. Yes, it today hallucinates. I do not use AI for legal research. Not only does it hallucinate, it also misinterprets what the judgment is said. So the judgment will exist, but it doesn't say what AI is saying.
Yes.
And often hallucination, judgment doesn't exist at all. But it's very useful for preparing a list of dates, uploading it, asking it questions about where certain documents are, where files are, to organize things, synopsis. It's like a junior who's read the file, and you treat it like that. So there are certain skills that AI can bring, and there are things it cannot yet do. Maybe one day when we come to AGI, artificial general intelligence, maybe at that point of time, AI would be useful for legal research. But how much legal research does every lawyer do in any case? How much legal research does the judge do every day in any case?
Yeah.
So much of their time is spent in doing mundane things. So when you're dictating a judgment, you're recounting the arguments of the plaintiff and the defendant, or the petitioner and the respondent. Surely AI can do that. And you get your written submissions, get AI to write that for you. So you don't waste your time. Apply your mind more on the reasoning of the judgment and cut it down by 1/100th of what you normally write. So AI can certainly help. And it's time judges started using it. People are Luddites, I think, in our country, and we can't afford to do that. We'll be left behind as a country if we don't use this tool. And the young are using it.
Yes, absolutely.
I was talking about WhatsApp uncles. Sorry.
No, a lot of people use it and they don't use it intelligently though. They'll just use it for every other thing, and then people will, they think that people don't understand that where you got it from was actually AI.
Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, that usage is an issue right now.
Maybe you need training. You see, there's a National Judicial Academy in Bhopal. Maybe they could consider having a session to teach judges how to use AI productively. Maybe they need to learn it as well. So you get people from the tech field. Judges are notorious in thinking that they have nothing to learn from others. Maybe it's the ivory towers that they put up in, and they start thinking that, everyone else is trying to misguide them or give something else, and aloofness is the only solution. And one aspect of aloofness is not taking any advice from anyone else, and it becomes like a fetish, I think. But you need expertise to come and teach you things. You need judges to be trained as to how to use AI. I know there are AI models that are being used in district courts in rural India to automate a lot of transcription. That's going to revolutionize how district judiciary functions. Different issues and forms of adjudication have different requirements, and AI can fit a lot of them, but it can't. But where it can fit, please use it and train, learn.
Even youngsters, I think young law students should be given AI trainings now, so that when they become judges, they are they know what to do, how to use it, and adept at it.
And judges are trained by lawyers often, because I can do my research, I can tell the judge this is the law. Same thing with AI. I mean, and judges are not idiots, right? They're extremely clever people. They all learned how to use iPads and electronic form, shifted from paper to digital in COVID. I mean, it's not something they can't learn, but someone's got to teach you also. So maybe I'm being unfair to judges when I say that they're in the ivory towers, but partly because they have to be. But on this, I hope they'd be open.
Okay, sir, it was wonderful speaking to you. I don't want to take up more of your time.
I'm sorry I spoke too much, lawyers.
I've also been, in that flow, and it's been great.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Until the next time you come here to massage my ego, as I said. And maybe I can interview you and say what a great job I think Lawbeat is doing in bringing a diversity of opinion in a discussion in the legal sphere. I may not always agree with you. I usually do not always agree. I don't. But it is a refreshing point of view that you bring that we must all engage with, understand, and I salute you for standing your ground on certain times and bringing about a discussion. And I hope as time goes by, more and more of this discussion becomes cordial and with the ability to bring about a consensus, and even if not a consensus, an understanding of the other. Thank you.
Coming from you, it means a whole lot to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.